Ready? Play.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are tuning in from in the world. This is another episode of ATP Weekly, and I'm your host, Vanch. And joining me today is our wonderful guest, first time on this show, Tennis Now contributor, tennis writer, Eric Gudris. Eric, wonderful to have you on ATP Weekly. We're talking tennis.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so obviously, great week on the ATP Tour. We had 3 main events, but the event that we're going to be focusing on here is obviously the ATP 500 in Washington, D.C., the City Open by Mugdala. And, for the first time, this was a combined event. And, you had the awesome experience of being on site and being there in person. So how was that like? Just, given that this is the first time both the men and the women were competing together, we had some fantastic matches and storylines.
Yes. So, it was a great experience. Of course, just a little clarity. So this was the first ever ATP and WTA combined 500 event because, of course, last year the WTA event from Silicon Valley was moved to DC. DC had a women's event prior to that for several years. It was at a different tier. So this was the first time that we had a combined ATP WTA 500 event, which meant on the women's side, there were definitely more higher ranked players in the women's draw, which was great to see. And of course, on the men's side, again, DC has been one of the longest running men's event on the tour. So certainly a lot of history, certainly a lot of players enjoy coming to DC to get the hard court swing started in North America, despite the hot and humid conditions. It was a great week. Of course, a very unexpected week. Of course, lots of surprises, but overall, it was a great experience.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I guess if we can jump right ahead to the tennis. You mentioned surprises, and obviously, the champion at the end, Dan Evans, who's now at a career high of 21 in the world. He came into this week, and he hadn't had good form all. He had one semifinal showing in Barcelona, which really kind of stands out when you looked at his season coming into this week. He was 8-18 on the ATP Tour, some challenger matches in there in Surbiton as well. But you certainly, if you had told him at the start of the week you'd be lifting the ATP 500, and basically all your points from last year's Montreal event would be defended and more. Mm-hmm. I think he would certainly sign up for that, and he played spectacular tennis throughout the whole week. Beating the likes of Tiafoe, and then backing that up with a nice win over Grigor Dimitrov, and then also in the final. And he didn't drop a set in any of those 3 matches, and just the fantastic shot making, and he's just such a treat to watch when he's in that kind of zone and playing so well. And what was your kind of takeaway from it, watching that unfold?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I felt like when the week started, I felt like the event was wide open, essentially. I felt like any number of players had a chance just based on the draw. And like you said, I don't think anyone, including Evans himself, was expecting him to go all the way and take the title. I think, as he said after the match, he said he'd been putting in the effort on the practice court, and it was showing on the practice court. It just wasn't translating in matches. And this week, everything clicked for him. Of course, it's great to see. He's as you said, he's such a fantastic player to watch when he's fully on. And I feel like it was just those last few matches defeating Tiafoe. Of course, in the final, he played really clean tennis, didn't have a lot of unforced errors for the last couple matches. So just credit to him. And it's great to see him playing again at a high level. And again, when he's playing at a high level, he is very, very difficult to beat for any player. And he's proving he can play not just top 20 tennis, but top 10 level tennis when he's fully on.
Yeah, absolutely. And we already touched on this, but kind of the all-court game, the fantastic net play, the great backhand slices, which put so many of his opponents in awkward positions, and just kind of the craftiness and serving and volleying at times as well. And I just watching somebody have such proactive footwork to create the kind of forehands and aggression on the court, it's this kind of old school classical brand of tennis that's when it's all kind of put together and all the ingredients are, solidified. It's it's such a treat, and you could kind of see the momentum building from match to match, and he just kept getting better as the week went along. And you would have expected, maybe there'd be some kind of a blip. Maybe he'd feel more nervous serving it out, especially when Griekspoor put him under pressure and created break points for the first time in the final. But he had some tremendous composure, and he was able to close it out. And I was impressed, because obviously biggest title of his career, and at 33 years old. Do you think he can kind of build on this moving forward? And is he kind of one of the players to be looking out for at the U.S. Open?
Definitely. We'll see what happens. Like any player will say, even if they're having a tough season, as long as they can have one good week or two good weeks, that can totally change not just the season but their career. And these players, they as Evan said, he felt like he could play at this high level. It just wasn't happening this season, and it just all kind of clicked this week. So moving ahead, of course, he's going to have a lot of confidence going into the rest of the hardcourt events in North America. And certainly now that he's at a new high ranking, he's definitely going to be someone at the U.S. Open that none of the top players want to see on his side of the draw, because, like you said, he's such a crafty player. He feels he belongs on the court with anybody. And so, yeah, he's definitely going to be someone to keep an eye on at the Open, depending kind of where he lands in the draw.
Yeah, for sure. And looking at the finalists as well, Tallon Griekspoor from the Netherlands, and this is a guy who won 8 challenger titles in 2021, and he's kind of having a mid-career surge, like some of the other players we see kind of born in the same year as him, like Christopher Eubanks, and we saw, like, for instance, Lloyd Harris a couple of years ago. And just the way he was able to get through Taylor Fritz in that semifinal, particularly from the middle of the second set to the end of the match, he just really caught this purple patch, and just such powerful ground strokes. And he was really especially against players who, like, for instance, in the final, he was playing a guy who was not giving him any rhythm, and who was mixing the pace up, and who was really with that crafty style, kind of being a disruptor on the court. But we saw him against Fritz kind of go toe to toe, power for power, and it was really kind of it was really impressive to watch, and it really took Fritz by surprise.
Yes, absolutely. And even after that match, Fritz, said afterwards in his press conference, he said he felt like he didn't play a bad match. It just that Tallon kind of took that match out of his hands down the stretch, as you said. And I was impressed with Tallon's variety on the backhand. Certainly he's got the two-handed backhand, but he has a great slice, and at one point he had a great winning lob with a one-handed backhand over Taylor up at the net. So that he's definitely got some variety as well. And he's been, as you said, he's been building a great season the last couple of years. And I think he's, for, I guess, the casual tennis fans, he may be someone a little bit off the radar, but now he's certainly announced himself as someone to watch at the Open as well, because he's definitely probably going to be seated there. And he now feels like he belongs with the best players, and he's just building this great season. So again, another player to kind of keep an eye on in the draw when they get to New York.
Yeah, for sure. Ghosty in the chat is mentioning he won Pune at the start of the year, and also won Hertogenbosch. And 3 finals on a season like this. He's quietly becoming one of the 20 best players in the world as far as 2023 is concerned. But to talk more about kind of our top 2 seeds, of course, Fritz and Tiafoe, this was kind of a moment for them to, get to the final again, and kind of show why they are the 2 best players in American men's tennis. And for Fritz, obviously, he won Atlanta, and he was in pretty decent form. And Griekspoor obviously was able to break him, I think, 3 times, which was more than Taylor got broken in any of his matches combined, and that includes Atlanta as well. What's kind of your big picture takeaway on Fritz and his North American hardcourt swing so far? Of course, keeping in mind also that I think he's really wants to get a good showing at the U.S. Open, of course, now, because he's been doing so well on tour, and one of the most consistent players in inside the top 10 for a reason. But his last 4 slam results have been rather disappointing, and I think he'd be the first to admit it. So what's kind of your outlook on where Fritz is at?
Definitely. So, I mean, so far so good, especially heading into the US Open. Of course, he won Atlanta, and I was actually surprised that he got as far as he did in DC, because it's hard to kind of continue that momentum, even just physically. You've played a tournament all week, now you're coming into another tournament, and it's kind of hard to keep that momentum going. But he did very well. Of course, ran into Tallon, but again, like you said, he didn't play necessarily a bad match, so he's got some positives to take away from there. With him, I think it's just once he kind of gets up against like the Djokovic's, Alcaraz, that's kind of where we're going to kind of see where he really is, because he certainly has the tools to make a deep run at a slam. I think for him, it's more in some ways taking some of the pressure off himself and just like playing and enjoying the moment. Kind of on the flip side with Tiafoe in DC this week, of course, he was the local favorite. He really wants to win his hometown event. I think there may have just been a little bit too much expectation placed on himself by himself, and just fans wanting him to really to win DC, and maybe one day he will. I think it'll be interesting to see how Tiafoe kind of handles all the expectations placed on him last year at the US Open, coming back into the US Open, defending all those points. Certainly he's a fan favorite, especially in the United States, someone that really loves to engage with the crowd, and he's going to have to sort of, again, manage those expectations that he places on himself, and the fans place on him to make a deep run.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess to touch on going back to Fritz for a second, he was one of the players that had to play 2 matches in one day, of course, with the round of 16 and the quarterfinals. And one of those matches was a top billing match against Andy Murray. Mm-hmm. And Murray, of course, kind of building on his good showing at Wimbledon, but comes up just a little short again against a top 10 player. And he's obviously been playing extremely, much kind of emboldened tennis. We saw him play a lot more offensive, particularly in that first set against Fritz, where he really took it to him and hit, I think, like 24 winners and came back from a breakdown. And you got to see kind of what still makes Andy Murray so good, with all of his variety and the way he was able to disrupt Fritz, and just a lot more aggressive outlook. And he just kind of played a poor game at 4-all in the third set, and that's kind of what it came down to in the end. And he had some chances, and kind of like he did against Tsitsipas. I mean, he's on the one hand, you can look at it as, this is kind of a positive. He's playing a better level than what his ranking would indicate at number 40 in the world. But I don't think he's happy with that at this stage of his career, especially. He knows the clock is kind of ticking and he doesn't have as much time left. And I think he's kind of just fed up of these moral victories and just wants to actually get the one big run and, prove to himself that he's still at the very top of the game. And so where do you think he kind of goes from here and builds on it, and maybe tries to get himself seeded for the US Open, of course?
Right. Yeah. Murray spoke about that after his loss to Fritz, saying, where he lost to Fritz badly and last year in Canada in easy straight sets. So, and he admitted after that match last year that he felt like he was in a bad place. So this year, losing to Fritz, he could take the positives away, that it was a close match, but at the same time, he said he was frustrated that he's lost a lot of these close matches, like the one he did against Tsitsipas. That's what he's known for in his career, grinding through these tough matches, and it's just not happening. He's close, but not getting over the line, and that's his biggest frustration right now. And I think it'll be interesting to see kind of how he does the rest of the hardcourt events leading up to the US Open. Certainly he wants to get seeded, but he wants to get seeded at the Open so he can avoid a top player first round. But he's going to have to find a way to somehow grind out these close losses into close wins to get to that rankings and get a seeding. So that's he wants it, like you said, he wants it, but he's going to have to figure that out, and that's going to be fascinating to watch the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, well said. And of course, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, which is Tiafoe being a fan favorite. Someone else who is a big fan favorite, and has enjoying himself. His first proper season on the ATP Tour is Ben Shelton, and he of course won the doubles. And he's on a bit of a losing streak at the minute and not closing out a lot of these matches as well. But where's kind of your outlook on Ben Shelton right now at this stage of the career? Is this just kind of your typical sort of, you have one big run and more players are kind of scouting you and the report is kind of out and you kind of have to adjust to the new life of being on tour every week and playing each event for the first time? And because he's obviously got tremendous potential with the skills that he does have with the big serve and the huge forehand and the great net play, but he also has some holds that he's certainly trying to work on right now with the rally tolerance and the return of serve and the backhand. I just think we should probably allow him a bit more time to hone these kind of areas, but he's certainly one that a lot of people are talking about.
Absolutely, and I think you said it well. When I think for him, it's an adjustment period. He kind of burst on the scene, so much expectation, and now he's kind of getting fully into the swing of the tour. More players know of him, know where his weapons and his weaknesses are, but I think there's so much upside potential that I think for him it's just sort of, again, managing those expectations and just kind of getting adjusted to life week in, week out on the tour. And certainly he's got the weapons to catch fire. So I think, again, it's just, I think for him, it's just, like you said, it's kind of an adjustment period this season. And certainly we'll see what happens at the US Open.
Yeah, it all just happened so quickly for him because, last year he was winning the NCAAs. He had the big win over Ruud in Cincinnati and the whole world's attention kind of the end of last season when he had all that success at the challenger level. And then, of course, the notable result being the Australian Open quarterfinal. So, it's always interesting to see how players do after big runs like that and, managing the kind of the pressure and the expectations. And he's still kind of a dangerous outside player for any of the top players. And it'll be kind of interesting to see him in Canada this week, because if he wins that first round against Zapata Morales, we could have that popcorn clash against Carlos Alcaraz, which would certainly be a treat to watch. But I'm trying to think on the singles side if there are any other names or notable stories that kind of stand out to you. Maybe some players, not as well known, but certainly caught your eye in terms of prospects moving forward at this event.
Yeah, I mean, I would say one player definitely to keep an eye on is Michael Mmoh. He had that great win over Hurkacz. Couldn't quite get it done against JJ Wolf, but certainly a positive week for him. A player that's sort of been on the cusp for a while. So again, I think hopefully he can take some positive away this week from DC, and we'll kind of see where his game goes from there. And I'll just, on the flip side, a player that's very well known that I was certainly impressed with, has been impressed with for a while, is Grigor Dimitrov. I mean, I actually thought he was going to win the tournament just because he was hitting the ball so well early on. So I feel like he's someone to keep an eye on. I think he's had some really decent results in the last couple of weeks, and when he's really on, of course, he can really threaten anyone. So he's someone that, as he said, he's no spring chicken, but I would definitely keep an eye on him in the next couple of weeks, because I just think he's been hitting the ball really well.
That's a really good shout. I was actually going to bring him up. He's he's had a lot of, I would say, good losses this year, where they've all basically come to the best players in the world, and he's winning about 2/3 of his matches. And I see, just a lot more confident tennis, and he doesn't seem to be kind of having those ups and downs and losing those random matches like he maybe has in the last few years. And obviously, as you said, he has serious pedigree, with winning the ATP finals and getting to world number 3, and being kind of one of the members of that other middle generation with Nishikori and Raonic, and they ran into the big three, plenty of times, and he's obviously made deep runs at majors before. And I don't think it would be too much of a shock if he was in the quarterfinals of the U.S. Open, or has a deep run in Canada, or Cincy. So that's a good shout to mention him. It was cool to see Monfils as well. Winning a couple of matches, and he's certainly someone who's at the end of his career, and he's still able to pull off some of these big wins, like the one against Baez and in Roland Garros, where he just showed a ton of heart and managed to get over the line. And then, of course, I was impressed that he was able to put away Bublik, rather comfortably, and push Griekspoor as well. So he's going to be exciting to watch too.
Yes, and I would add about Monfils, I think he's perhaps become a little more businesslike in his matches, maybe now that he's married with Alina Svitolina, they have a family and everything. And of course, he was the Bublik match you mentioned. I mean, everybody wanted to see that match, but actually Monfils was actually the more businesslike in that match, which is hard to believe, but he was. Yeah. So maybe he's now, as you say, he's getting older. He realizes he doesn't have that many years left. Maybe he's going to, and of course he's going to thrill the crowd when he wants to, but maybe he learns that he needs to kind of, go a steadier course to win some of these matches that he's lost in the past.
Yeah, for sure. And, just to kind of take it away from DC for a bit, since this is the US swing, what are you kind of most excited about these next couple of weeks with the Masters events, and then obviously, the US Open, and maybe for the rest of the year? Like, what are some of the storylines that you'll be looking for as a writer?
Sure. So definitely, of course, seeing how Alcaraz kind of adjusts after winning Wimbledon, to see kind of how he performs throughout the hard court season. Curious to see Djokovic, how he kind of rebounds. And of course, Djokovic has been around for so long. I don't know if he necessarily needs a ton of matches heading into the US Open, but we'll see. I'm also curious as far as Casper Ruud, who certainly proved that he can do well on hard courts. And of course, Daniel Medvedev as well. I think he loves the hard courts. He's probably very happy to be back on them. So again, Tsitsipas as well. So I think it's those players that we kind of want to see what their form is heading into these events, as you mentioned, and then heading into the US Open.
Yeah, for sure. For me, it'll be very interesting to see where Medvedev lands when the US Open draw comes out, assuming that he is the number 3 seed, because it would be very interesting to see if he lands in Djokovic's half or in Alcaraz's half. And if he does play Alcaraz again, if he's able to make those kind of tactical adjustments and learn from the Indian Wells matches and Wimbledon matches, which were one-sided, because I do think he plays Novak quite well and tight. And if that's a semifinal, and for instance we get Alcaraz against Sinner, for example, or something like that, there's just some spectacular possibilities, I think, but I think it all kind of depends on how the draw unfolds.
Right, absolutely.
But yeah, and also DC, I guess something else that came up is really brutal weather and humidity, and we saw a lot of incidents kind of happen in the stadium where fans were getting ill, and it was all heat related. And is this just kind of typical DC weather at this time of the year, and how does that kind of affect certain players? And was that kind of something people were talking about on the grounds?
Well, it's to be expected in DC just because of the weather. I will say that while we did have some very hot days, it wasn't a brutal heat or humidity that we've had in the past at previous events. So I think that, of course, on court, it's much harder than it is in the stadium. But a lot of the players talked about before the tournament started, they were doing various things training-wise to kind of prepare not just for DC, but for the rest of North America, because it can get very hot. I mean, Andy Murray was saying that he was doing bike training in a steam room, which is a little unorthodox, but I guess it works for him. So I think that I think it'll be interesting to see, just because the weather in North America has been more extreme, just in general, and of course there's been these kind of wildfire from Canada and the smoke haze issue, which could certainly become an issue at other events in North America, including the US Open. So that's kind of something, I don't know how a player prepares for that. I mean, in some ways it's like Australia when they have their extreme heat down under, and they have the players take a break and things like that. So players can train for it as much as they can. They train in Florida or wherever, but it's still kind of something that's very hard to really prepare for unless you're just used to really super hot weather. So we'll have to see kind of how that all transpires, if it does.
Yeah, for sure. Someone in the comments is mentioning the Agassi Edinburgh 1995 final where it was over 100 degrees.
Yes. I actually think I briefly saw some of that on YouTube the other day, and they were all wearing ice towels and everything. So so DC's been known for having super hot matches throughout the years.
Yeah, well, Eric, this was a lot of fun. A blast to chat with you for the first time. And what's kind of next for you, like on the agenda? Like which events will you be covering, be on site for, and forward to seeing your work?
Sure. So I'm still a little bit TBD about what tournaments I'll be on site for next, but I certainly will be covering them for Tennis Now with my colleagues over there. So of course, feel free to check out the coverage on tennisnow.com. And of course, you can follow me on what was formerly known as Twitter at my handle ATN Tennis.
Well, yeah. So there it is. There's our chat with Eric. And thanks a lot for the time, and it was great chatting with you. And hopefully we can do this again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks. All right. So it was fantastic to have Eric on. He is a good follow on Twitter, or X, whatever it's called now. I refuse to call it X. Twitter just sounds so much better. But Srihari who is producing backstage, is now joining me live. How are you, my
Yeah, I
friend?
made it a point to change those banners to X, just to be up to date, whether we like it or not. But yeah, it was great to have Eric with us, and once again, thank you, Eric. I think it's his debut for Talking Tennis, if I'm not mistaken, or he might have been here before, but definitely the first time with you and I here. So it was great to get some insight on what the first-hand experience at Washington was, because it was a pretty eventful week in both the men's and women's.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have anything to kind of last kind of piggyback off anything Eric said in DC?
No, I think you all, the two of you covered it pretty well. There's just one thing I wanted to add about Medvedev and Alcaraz. They played a practice set. Medvedev won in the tiebreaker. I think it means nothing, because Alcaraz and Shapovalov played a practice set. Shapovalov won. That was in Madrid, and we know what happened when they played at RG. So, so basically, I didn't watch it. Maybe if we got some footage of it, I would like to see it and see what exactly it was that Medvedev did. I saw a couple of points. He was on his own serve. He was doing something different. He was trying to be aggressive. He's trying to rush Alcaraz and approach the net, and he's pretty good with those drive volleys, and not the best at the net, but he has decent hands. And from what I heard, Alcaraz wasn't really doing much of serve and volleys, so I think that also made a huge difference, because it becomes a no contest when Alcaraz does that against Daniil, and from what we've seen, I think 2 matches are good enough sample size there. So yeah, of course. I mean, you should have expected something like that, right, Ghosty?
Yeah, that's just par for the course.
Yeah.
But I guess something that hasn't been par for the course over the last 1 year is Tsitsipas winning a title. So he did that in Los Cabos, winning his first title in 13 months, and got through Diminor, who he has an amazing head-to-head against, now 10-0. Was also his 10th
Yep.
title, and he beat Jari and Chorich along the way, which kind of stands out. Of course, Isner in the first round too, but this was kind of a much needed week boost, I would say, for Tsitsipas.
Yeah, not a easy draw, all things considered. Tricky for sure because both two players have beaten him multiple times, and have given him a tough time as well. And Chorich, I mean, apart from, I mean, we saw something very similar to Tsitsipas's last, I want to say, or his two of his three losses to Chorich at the United Cup, where he was close to closing out the match in straight sets, and then he's down a break in the third, but then it was important for him to pull it back, and he managed to get it done, 7-5 in the third, and since then really he's just been dominant, and he won their match in Rome pretty easily. He won their match here also very comfortably. So, it's safe to say that there wasn't really a matchup issue per se. I don't think George does anything very specifically that really bothers Tsitsipas. But yeah, that's sort of, I guess we could see that. And also his match against Jari was pretty impressive, the way he came back from a set down, and felt like Jari would have closed that out very similar to their match in Halle. That was also pretty good. And it was never in doubt that he was beating Dominor in the final.
Yeah, I honestly don't even think he played his best in the final, because
Me
he was up a break in both sets, and he just kind of lost focus and gave the break back, and then was able to just break straight away again. And because it's a nightmare matchup. Like, you look at Dominor, he's he has good court coverage. He's fast. He's more of a counterpuncher at heart, but he doesn't really have anything to hurt Tsitsipas with,
because whatever he throws at Tsitsipas, it just comes right back with interest, and Tsitsipas has everything covered. He really, like you mentioned, like, he can't even cause a dent in Tsitsipas' game. Like, the closest he came to beating him was, I think, Indian Wells 2021, and we also know, if you people knew the context, that was also around when Tsitsipas was experiencing those elbow issues close to the end of 2021. And some pretty bizarre performances and losses around that time frame definitely contributed to that scoreline. It was 6-7, 7-6, 6-2 for Steph. But yeah, and I would say a regular occasion, I always would favor Tsitsipas, and we have enough of a sample size for that. I mean, it's 10-0. I think aside from maybe 3 or 4 other players, I don't even think Steph has played anyone else, as many times, apart from maybe Novak, Rafa, Medvedev, Zverev, Thiem. I can't think of any other player who's played that many times and to be that successful. So yeah, that would help him a lot. And yeah, he wasn't at his best, but he, at the same time, I think when I watched this match against Jari, I just wondered, why does he not approach the net often? He's so good at the net. Why does he never implement that in most of his matches? I mean, you've seen that, right? In a couple of matches against Medvedev, all of his matches against Medvedev last year, he won 2 of them. Part of the reason was he was so good at the net and just completely cutting off any weapon Medvedev could have in terms of the passing shots, or how well he covers the baseline, what he could hurt Tsitsipas with in that matchup. He did pretty well to curtail all of that. So I just wonder, why isn't it something he tries on a regular basis? And it also helps hide that backhand weakness, I would say.
Yeah, that's interesting you bring that up. I thought he came to the net a lot more in his other 3 matches apart from the Jari match. I think in the Jari match, he was more content to stay behind the baseline. He only came to the net 9 times in that match in 3 sets, which is very low for him.
Quite a few times towards the end of the second set, and when he was serving for the match, serving to stay in the match.
I think a lot of that just had to do with how well Jari was just playing in the first 2 sets, and he was like keeping Steph on the back foot. There was this tiebreak where he was, in the first setting where he was up 6-3, and I thought he would close out the set from there. And then Jari, to his credit, came up with some spectacular shots, but you wouldn't expect Tsitsipas to kind of lose from that position, and he did get kind of passive on one or two occasions where I thought he passed an opportunity to come forward. So that's actually good that you bring that up.
Mhm.
And then after that, he was just, once he was able to get the second set, get the mini break and the tie break, he was just able to wear Jari down on the slow hard court. Conditions were quite slow this whole week,
Yeah,
just because it was so hot, so humid. It was like 30 35 degrees at night when they started playing, and most of these
yeah,
matches were only starting at night. And I know that
yeah.
Cabo likes to do that because, yeah, I mean, the players, it's kind of the same thing in Acapulco, right? Like the matches, they
Yeah.
just they start
Yeah,
in
it's
the
pretty
evening.
humid as well. Not, aside from the fact that it's pretty hot. Someone who lives here in
Yeah,
Dubai can definitely relate to that. It's just brutal at night. I mean, when the Dubai Open itself happens, it's just the temperatures are much cooler, and I think that's the best spot in the calendar the tournament can have, all things considered. But still, yeah, at night in places like, I mean, Acapulco and Los Cabos is just known. I mean, the court itself is slow to begin with, and it gets slower during the night, regardless of how fast the conditions are. And yeah, and to add to that, the humidity and the heat. So that's not easy conditions to play in.
yeah, for sure. I mean, other results in Cabo, I guess. I mean, you obviously had the rematch of the Acapulco final between Paul and Diminor, and they always play close matches, but Diminor just about edges it every time. I think it's a 5-0 head-to-head now for Diminor, and he came back from 3-1 down in the third. What else? Oh yeah, Nori losing to Kovacevic in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, it was up a set. I think the second set break. I don't know if he had a match one, probably not, but
Yeah, I
um,
think 2 points away, but fairly.
right.
He came down to the second set tiebreak, I think, and 6-all. And Kovacevic, of course, you saw him make his Grand Slam debut at the French Open, where he played Djokovic in the
Yeah,
first round.
playing Novak in the first round. I remember.
Yeah, he's definitely
And
another player who's, because he played college tennis, he turned pro kind of late, and now he's almost 25, but he's having a good breakthrough year.
yeah,
Nori is probably one of these players that needs a good week, I would say, in leading up to the U.S. Open, because his form has been kind of patchy ever since
yeah,
Indian Wells. Really, like he
yeah.
hasn't had that one great week, and has been losing earlier than he was in the first 3 months of the year.
Yeah, still around the 12 and 13 mark, but a lot of that from Rio.
Yeah,
And thinking of where else he had a big result. Let me fourth round last year at the US Open. I remember that.
yeah,
Semis in
semifinals in
Cincinnati,
Cincy. Yeah,
beating
where he took out
Alcaraz.
Alcaraz.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's pretty interesting. I do think one of these tournaments he's gonna have a pretty good run. He almost all of his runs that he's had, the big ones, he has managed to cause some upset or the other. So I mean, even Acapulco last year made the final beating Tsitsipas, and yeah, obviously won Rio beating Carlos. That was a pretty big win because I think one of only four players to beat Carlos this year. So that's
Yeah.
quite a big deal. Um, but
Sure.
yeah,
Yep. So I think that about does it for Cabo.
yeah,
We want to move on to Kitzbuhel, the last clay court event
yeah. I mean, a
here.
lot
About
to
seeing more clay
unpack in Kitzbühel,
and February.
especially if Jethro's here, he'd be beaming to talk about Kitzbühel. This final is being two of his favorites, Sebastian Baez and Dominic Thiem. But
Yeah.
we'll wind back obviously from the beginning, because especially with Thiem, I think every match was a battle um, until the final. He had Facundo Bagnis in the first round again in this tournament, like he did. Um, where did he play, in Gstaad or Bastard? Where was
I
it?
think Umag the week
Umag, right?
before. Yeah, you're right.
Umag,
Yeah.
yeah. And obviously he lost to Lehechka in the round of 16 there. But here he made it all the way to the final, and that path, you're
Oh,
beating
right from the Magnus
Bagnis.
match. 5 set points, 8 in the first set, 2 in the
Yeah,
second. Both
yeah,
won both of them in tie breaks.
yeah. And then I think
That's
he
nice.
got to Ringdagnesh. No, Zhang Ringdagnesh, Jere. and then all of them 3 sets. I think
Yeah.
one of them, obviously one against Jere, was saving 5 match points, 7-6 in the third, and I even tweeted about it, saying last time he made the final was also when he beat a certain Serbian 7-6 in the third.
Yeah.
A similar scoreline. This was 6-7, 7-5, 7-6. That was 7-7-5, 6-7, 7-6. Saving 12 break points also, which is pretty impressive. And unsurprisingly, he just didn't have much in his tank for the final. I knew it was going to be either he gets blown out or it's going to be another battle, and he's going to give it one last uh, go, and then sort of uh, wriggle out, maybe 7-6 in the third again, or the crowd gets him through to the title. But that wasn't meant to be. And again, Sebastian Baez, who was also having a pretty tough season, even though he won a title earlier this year. um Good for him that he managed to win another title. Has not been able to do as well as he would have liked in the big tournaments, so maybe this is a much needed win, and it'll be interesting to see how he does on the hard courts. We do remember that he played Alcaraz in the first round of the US Open last year. Two epic sets, 7-5, 7-5, and when he's down break in the third, he had to retire. Um, due to injury, and that was unfortunate. So we know that he can take it to the best players. Took Zverev to 5 sets at RG last year from 2 sets up, and also troubled Tsitsipas significantly when they played at the Australian Open. I want to say third round. It was second or third round. So yeah, we know that he plays pretty well against these top guys. And not to mention, he took a set of Rude in Hamburg when they played the opening round.
Yeah, for sure. And this is one of those runs that you hope would propel Thiem into the top 50 by the end of the year, and he can something that he can actually build on, because we've had some results like this before, particularly at the end of last year indoors, where he made a couple of semis, beat players like Hurkacz and Cerundolo, and had a close match against Korda, and just kind of thought that he was building some more week to week kind of consistency, and the forehand was back. But then he had this long off season, shut it down after losing to Medvedev in Vienna, I think, and then and then had a tough first round against Rublev at the Australian Open, but then never really got going and lost in some challengers too. And his two kind of standout performances before this week were both losses against Tsitsipas in a final set tiebreak in Madrid and Wimbledon, and that's kind of all us tennis fans were holding on to, as we were clinging on to that hope that maybe this is a sign that Thiem is finally starting to compete with the best players again. But I just hope, as a fan of tennis and a fan of his, especially because of how much he adds to the game when he's at his best, particularly like we saw in 2019 and 2020. So it would be good to see him build on a run like this, and I just hope it wasn't kind of that one outlier run, and he can actually. I think where is he at in the rankings now? 89. Yeah, 89, 84 in the ranking.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I think he was
So he's
116.
broken back into the top 100, and that would help getting him a direct entry into slams.
Interesting parallel there with 32. That means he moved up 32 spots, which is it's been 32 months since that last final. in 2020 at the World Tour
drawing
final.
parallels, don't you? But yeah, we were talking about Andy potentially being seeded for the US Open, and that kind of took a beating in Washington. That there was a winnable match that he lost, could have made it deeper. But
he was pretty frustrated.
Yeah, with the upcoming tournaments, I just wonder where he does make it, because he got Gasquet. Was it 2 years ago? Right, 2 years ago he got Gasquet, I think. Last year he beat Wawrinka in a pretty epic one in Cincinnati. I'm not sure what his result was in Montreal, or if he even played Montreal.
Oh yeah, he did. He lost to Fritz badly there. Actually, he's not in a good place then. He lost to Fritz 1-3 in Montreal last year. So this was the second time those two played.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I think he needs a really good result. Right? Who does he play in Montreal again? Let's look at the
Toronto.
draw.
Let me see.
Oh yeah, Toronto. Who does he play? I mean, this is also a good segue because
Oh, it's Sonego. Yeah,
we're about to
that's
preview
also tough.
draw, but
Sonego in the first round.
yeah. I guess actually before we do the Toronto preview, I think we should give Baez some love. This was
Yeah.
his third career title.
Yep.
And he obviously, you could say he took advantage of a tired team, but he played really, really well in the final. He was really imposing. He dictated play with his forehand, which is one of his best shots. Doesn't have the biggest serve, obviously, but tremendous movement on a clay court, and just kind of is one of those players like a Diego Schwartzman, although he's more forehand centric and Diego's more backhand centric, but they're both players who just love clay, who love playing this time of the year and in the golden swing, and that's where they rack up a lot of their points, and they're
I have to also
really good
mention
at it.
Baez has a much better serve than Diego.
Oh wait, say that again. I think you got cut off.
Oh yeah, I wanted to say that Baez is a much better serve.
Yes, he does have a better serve and forehand than Diego.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And it was actually one of the things that happened in the final. His team was, 8 feet behind the baseline to return serves, which is obviously something team does, and he just gets back on the baseline and he hits. That's how he likes to get the point started, just with a lot of height and depth, and so he can unload on second serve returns. But against Baez, he probably wanted to move closer in at some point and take some of those second serve returns early, just because he is slower. He can just be so much more overpowering if he does that, and he's just in a much more advantageous position. But obviously, he was fatigued, and I just thought Baez was just so steady the whole time and never really made many errors and held serve pretty comfortably and was all over team serve, and that's why we got kind of a one-sided result. But Baez also did really well this week to beat Echeverry, who was the number 1 seed in the semi. That was a really close semi, and it kind of came down like the Andy and Fritz match did to one poor game at 4-all in the third for Thomas Martin. But Baez, I think the question for me is just what is he going to do outside of the clay courts, because his record on hard courts is nowhere near as good. I think he's 6-23 or something like that in the last year, and it's just and he's losing a lot of close matches, some of them he's getting absolutely blown out by the best players, which I mean, he's still young and he has time to kind of change that narrative about him around like Diego did, and so I think it'll be interesting to see if his game actually can translate, because I can't think of any other reason why it wouldn't. I mean, we saw him play a really good match against Alcaraz in the first round of the US Open last year before he had to retire. So I'd love to see him.
Yeah, also against Tsitsipas last year at the Australian Open, I think the first 3 sets were really tight.
You're right. Yeah, he did play Tsitsipas second round or something at the Australian. Yeah, that was a good showing. Yeah, I just hope we see more matches like that where he can just build on it and at least win a round or two in every big tournament on a hard court. But what else from? No, I think that about does it for Kitzbuhel. I think we can just move on to looking at Toronto for the top 2 seeds.
Yep.
Alcaraz and Medvedev. I think I mentioned this to Eric already, but Alcaraz is playing the winner of Zapata Morales or Ben Shelton, and then potentially you could have Hurkacz. Round of 16. I think quarters potential is Runa. Semis.
Yeah, Hurkacz plays Bublik in the first round. And Hurkacz and Bublik and Alcaraz, that would be fun. I just don't know what to expect there.
Yeah, for sure. And we already have play underway actually right now. We have a lot of good first rounds. Today is you're right,
quite a
Bublik and
few.
Hurkacz and
I know it's
Raonic and Tiafoe.
playing a Canadian.
Good to see Raonic back. He's hopefully he's healthy and he plays well. Monfils and Eubanks, another popcorn first round. Bublik, Hurkacz, like you mentioned, Davidovich, Fokina, and Wolf. Nakashima and Lehechka. It's going on right now. They're in the first set, and that's the
of course. It's
rematch of
But yeah,
next gen
Musetti,
players.
Nishioka, like you mentioned. Berrettini plays Barrere.
Yeah,
He
I
just
think this is possible.
Berrettini spoke about how he sort of went into depression last year or so because
Mm,
of repeated injuries and that affecting his form. But then we know that when he's healthy, doesn't really matter so much the draw, because he came
yes.
through a pretty good draw in Wimbledon. I mean, pretty difficult draw, I should say, and pretty well in Wimbledon, and pushed Alcaraz that took a set off him in the fourth round.
Hmm.
And that was a commendable result. And I think he's back to a spot in the rankings where he still can be seated at slams and, could potentially play, some of the one of the top guys as early as the third round. So
Yeah,
yeah, and that again depends on whether or not he moves up even more. And he does have a lot of points to defend there. So that's kind of there's some kind of pressure there for sure. He was the
mm,
quarterfinalist last year. Um,
yeah,
I that is one of his best slams. I mean, semi-finalist in 2019 and quarterfinalist last couple of years, fourth round in 2020. So yeah, he does feel comfortable there in New York. Uh, Strangely enough,
yeah,
he's not won the title yet on the surface, but he's still really good. Um, but yeah, I think it really depends on the results that he has, and he can definitely be a tricky opposition for anyone. And yeah, there are other matches too, like Musetti and Nishioka. Musetti, who's I think now is firmly in the top 20. He's having good results across surfaces now, rather than just
yeah.
clay.
Since Monte Carlo, I think that was a turning point for him. That tournament.
Yeah, beating Novak and then making the semis in Barcelona. I don't know what he did in Rome. I know he made the fourth round in RG, lost to Carlos.
Yeah, I think Tsitsipas losses in Rome and Barcelona.
Oh yeah, he
Mm,
lost to
mm.
Tsitsipas in Rome as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Hmm.
he's kind of another one who's been kind of like Dimitrov, like he's been running into the top players and then
Yeah.
um, but winning a couple of matches each tournament. So yeah, you're right. He's kind of a firm top 20 player now, just
Hmm.
transiting across all surfaces. Sonego and Murray is another popular one. I guess you want to just do some predictions?
Sure. We could
Uh,
speak about Dimitrov as well for a second,
it's gonna be-
because it's always just a matter of if he wins one of these matches that he's losing, what will happen. But then again, he's just so unpredictable. So we can't always just say, oh yeah, if something would open up the floodgates or anything like that. But yeah, just to say that probably he's having the best season since his career best season 6 years ago. Um,
Dimitrov, yeah, I definitely agree
yeah,
with that. I think it was Gil
yeah,
Rose who tweeted, yeah, he's having the best year since 2017. That's
yeah,
correct. Yeah.
yeah. Because I mean, he has done pretty well in the slam so far, and
Yep.
again, he's still yet to win a title since London in 2017, the ATP finals. But yeah, we will have to see. But still, he's still a dangerous floater for anybody. Yeah, we can go to predictions.
Yeah. I guess I don't know if I look at this top half. Like, I'm just curious to see how Alcaraz comes out after Wimbledon. Obviously,
Yeah.
last year he was a top seed at a Masters event, and he admitted that
Hmm.
that pressure kind of being the best, of suddenly being the top seed, got to him a little bit, and he lost to Tommy Paul in the first round where he had a match point. But this week, he has another
Yeah, I
difficult
think we
draw here. But then
seeded
again, it's like, what is a
second.
difficult draw anymore? Because he had a nightmare draw at Wimbledon. He had a nightmare draw at Indian Wells. He seems to have a nightmare draw in almost every big title that he does win. So for
Yeah,
him,
and
I
it's
think
it's
that,
only
yeah,
nightmare on paper, because then
yeah,
we expect a close match, and then he progressively just thumps them. Same at RG. I mean, Musetti, we thought that was the blockbuster clash, and he was routed. Um,
yeah,
and so was Tsitsipas. It
right,
obviously it took what happened against Novak and Novak himself for him to lose there, and yeah, the way the way we don't even fixate on that as much, because he went on to win another slam beating Novak. It's kind of impressive, because and then you wonder, the only way sometimes it's probably down, because he has reached the pinnacle. We're now talking about him, when exactly is he going to complete that career slam. um yeah, I can just pull up the draw, as John is requesting me to. Uh, make sure to get the printable one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That would be good to have the draw on the screen, actually.
Yep.
But I'm trying to see what else is possible. Some possibilities. Obviously, Alcaraz could play Hurkacz. Hurkacz would be probably would use a good result this week.
I don't know if this is a good view. I don't think anyone can see
Yeah.
it, so
I think you'd have to zoom in a lot.
yeah. Well, oof. Where did that go?
Yeah, but
Okay,
until
got
you
it.
get that, I'll just keep talking
Yeah,
about
I
this.
just pulled the tab out and then just right. I'm just gonna. Okay, we'll go half by half. Right there. Okay, wait, no. Okay. Oh my God, what's happening? No, I knew it was a pretty bad idea to switch browsers, but okay. There we go. Right. Okay. Um. Did it just? Okay, I'm just gonna. All right, there it is.
There we go. Okay. Yeah, if you want to just zoom in a little bit, I think people can see it better than the previous
Yeah.
one. But it's still a little bit small. Okay, yeah, cool, perfect. Yeah, now we can see it.
We'll go section by section then.
Okay, yeah, we'll do it by eights.
Yeah.
But so yeah, anything in the top eight that really stood out? I guess the popcorn match here is the Bublik and Hurkacz because
Yeah. Or we also maybe potentially Shelton and Alcaraz. Again,
yeah,
only because we talk about Shelton and sort of having plateaued since that Australian Open quarterfinal run. Can't think of any significant result
no,
since.
no, it's been tough since Australia. He hasn't had any
Yeah.
big. I mean, I don't think he's even won two matches in a row.
Yeah,
Then you have
and yeah, exactly. And then there was that video of him and Eubanks, I think, chatting that
yeah,
went viral. I'm pretty sure you saw it too, where he's talking about how he wants to be the player when other players see him in the draw, they'd be like terrified.
yeah,
It's hefty talk for the moment, but nonetheless, we'll see if he puts that uh,
yeah.
to anything here. Um,
Okay. Well, yeah.
Jerry,
So I think
yeah, we've not seen him for a while, and he managed to qualify. It's pretty good. He had a good sunshine double, um, and
right.
also, yeah, maybe around that period he was playing pretty good tennis. Uh, but yeah, like
Yeah,
uh, he's playing Kecmanovic. Okay, so again, Kecmanovic is another player who's had a pretty tough season,
yeah.
especially at
Apart
the
from
big
that
tournament.
Delray Beach final, he
Yeah.
is missing the kind of success that he had in the first half of 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Where he got to the fourth round. He took Djokovic's spot in Australia, and then he got to the fourth round there, and then he had that awesome sunshine swing where he beat Fritz in Miami, and then played one of the matches of the year against Alcaraz, and then even
Yeah,
you know,
those were really close. Upper set and 7-6 in the third. It
yeah,
could have gone either way. You never know. That would have opened up Miami,
yeah,
and we could have possibly seen Gasper Ruud being a Masters champion. But
yeah, for sure.
Anyway, so yeah, that's
Yeah.
that section.
So
Uh,
there's that. I think hopefully we get a. I would like to see her catch Alcaraz again. We only
mhm.
saw that, or Bublik. Really, honestly, either one of those in the.
Yeah, that would be fun, honestly, because we've seen Hurkacz and Alcaraz.
Yeah.
Bublik again, that
Her
would be
matches right now are a bit of a tough watch, just
yeah.
because he's just not breaking serve very often, and it's just not. This is nothing to like. It's not like great
Mhm.
tennis to really digest. It's very kind of.
It's true. It is true. So yeah, that being said, Tommy Paul and Diego Schwartzman.
Yeah, Schwartzman
Schwartzman
was
did,
qualified, right?
did well in qualifying. You need to get
Very
Tommy
strange
Paul
to
in the
see him in
first round.
qualifying, but hopefully he can just build on this.
Yeah, he
Paul,
can. I hope.
yes,
Um,
always tough
Tommy
one.
Paul has not had the best of time, I would say, since the Australian Open semis.
Yeah, since Acapulco, right? Or
Yeah.
since no, maybe since Miami, because I know in Indian Wells he had that really good match against Felix,
Yeah.
where he had these
And
6 match points. And then in
Miami as
Miami he
well.
lost to
He got
Alcaraz.
to the fourth round, lost to Alcaraz.
Yeah, but since then you're right. Like it hasn't been great. Just
There
that
was there
one
was some
challenger final
grass
against
tournament
Murray,
where he
and
made it deep, right? I don't remember
yeah,
which
the
one.
week before Wimbledon he lost to Cerundolo in the grass court final.
Yeah. They played twice in Queens and also
Yeah, Eastbourne, I
was it
think.
Eastbourne, and then they were on collision course to play in the third round in Wimbledon, and Lehechka beat them both. So
Yeah,
um, yeah. Anyway, right. This match is going on, Cerundolo and Galarno, if that's
yep.
how you pronounce it.
Um,
Um, yeah, Holger, pretty good draw for Holger, but I can see that match against Rusuvori get interesting. Rusuvori,
yeah,
I mean, he's a carbon copy of Sinner, and you just wonder why he hasn't had the same kind of success. It's just
yeah. He's like a poor man's Sinner. He just doesn't move as well. Doesn't.
oh wow, that's okay, okay. I mean,
Like
um,
he's a great player, but he's just like he's one of those power baseliners that's um like he doesn't like if plan A isn't really working, then he sprays a lot of errors. I feel like but like when he's
yeah,
clicking,
kind
he's
of
pretty
like
good.
Sinner anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah, but he's 24 already.
yeah. It
I
feels weird to
don't
call
know.
him like a baby Sinner just because he's so much older than
Yeah,
2 years
2 years
older.
older, and it feels like he's a lot older also. I remember hearing of him first when he absolutely clocked team in Davis Cup. It was 2019 or
Oh
20.
yes, I do
Um,
remember that after the U.S.
yeah,
Open.
yeah. Uh,
But it would be
anyway,
cool to see, like, for instance, Cerundolo against Runa again because they had that roller coaster match in RG
hmm.
where Runa won really ugly, despite
Yeah, I remember
winning, like
7-6 in the fifth. Kind of
yeah,
similar match against Fukina that he came through. Just didn't have much left in his tank to match up to Alcaraz. But now that he is in Alcaraz's quarter, we hope for a better match. And he
yeah,
also mentioned that he wasn't 100% health wise. Um, so yeah, let's just hope they play each other and they have a pretty good contest in that. There
yeah.
we
It
have
would
it.
be cool
Okay.
to see Runa Alcaraz again.
Right.
They're also practicing together right now, which I just saw
Mhm.
on Twitter.
Right.
So yeah, that's the first
Um,
quarter, and then this is the Tsitsipas quarter. Tsitsipas could play
yeah.
Eubanks, and although I think Gael Monfils is going to be a tough match for Eubanks, I actually don't.
Yeah. But I
See that.
expect Eubanks to come through.
Yeah, actually when I checked the odds, Eubanks was a slight favorite. But that's, I mean, sorry, no, Gael Monfils was a slight favorite.
Interesting. But yeah, Eubanks, yeah, he beat Tsitsipas the only time they played. That was not very long ago. But yeah, that would be interesting if they played again.
Yeah, in this section, I have my eyes on Dimitrov and I have my eyes on Korda because Korda lost to Shevchenko in EC, and he has a lot of chances
Yeah,
to
I
win
mean,
that.
Korda, I think he's honestly being overrated at the moment. He had a great start this season, but even when he has come back, he's
Yeah,
been
the highs
healthy.
have been really high, but the lows have been really low. That's kind of my take
Yeah,
on him.
yeah,
Um,
um,
but
yeah.
it's
And
weird
then
because like
I
he
mean,
came back in Madrid and he was clearly like still not 100% until the
mhm.
grass. And then he had that excellent run in Queens, and then we were all hyping him up for Wimbledon, and I bought into it, and I
Yeah.
thought he was going to get to the semi. So did many other people, and then and then he crashes out to Vesely, who in fairness is a very tough player
Mhm.
and who always beats a bunch of seeds at Wimbledon. But yeah, the problem is when his game is not working, like his forehand just sprays all over the place, um,
Yeah, that's true.
and the consistency isn't quite
Yeah,
there.
again,
He's on
players like Porter, Sinner, Rusuvori, they seem like when they're out of ideas, all they try to do is go for bigger.
Yeah, I guess
Keep
Felix is
spraying.
also like that. Who's
Felix, yeah. Felix, I
and
would say, is getting figured out. If you looked at the season, I mean, I know he's had his
I think it's
injury
been
woes.
injury related since Miami. But I
Yeah,
think
it's not
DC
been
was the
good.
first tournament where he was like, okay, fully healthy. And I think he
Yeah,
said
and
right
where
now
is he? Where is he in the race again? Somewhere lurking 30, 40, I think,
very low. I think outside the top
or
30.
50 even. Um,
Yeah. Oh yeah. So he,
looking
he
up.
very badly needs a good result. Who does he play in his first match? Do we have
Felix
that?
plays Purcell, who, by the
Oh
way, beat
yes.
him at the Olympics in the very same round.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, it was supposed to be Murray and Felix, but Murray
That is a
withdrew
match
last
he
minute.
should win, but then I could have said that about where he goes to. I could have said that about DC against Guadalupe.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I
I don't
think I
know.
feel the best about Dimitrov here, just because he's been in good form all year.
Yeah. Also, yeah, Felix is 48 in the race, not good at all. And we're
Yeah,
closing into the end, and it does make sense. He has so many points to defend after US Open. Uh,
yeah. All
Even
right, if you
last
want
year,
to
he
shut it
made the
down,
quarters. He made the quarters in Montreal. He just got blown out there.
yeah, yeah. Hopefully, he
So
can
yeah,
find some form in Toronto because
this
he's
quarter is a potential quarter of depth. You have Sinner, Felix, and then the likes of Berrettini, Murray, and so on, so on they go. And the other two as well are pretty tricky customers, Purcell and Barrere.
yeah. Sonego is a tough first round for Murray, but I actually expect Murray to win it. Uh, and the question is what? Yeah, this could be a good chance for Murray actually to get two matches in
Could be.
potentially.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. He's not done well historically against Felix, but
yeah, that's the thing. If Felix is really on, and if he's playing his best tennis, then I think it'll be too much.
yeah, but
And
what is Felix's win loss anyway? It's what 13-13, something to that effect.
yeah, not great this year. The only good result for him was Indian Wells.
Yeah,
It's the only tournament
13
where
and
he's actually
12 or
looked
13 and 13.
anything close
And yeah,
to.
most of those wins came at the Australian Open and Indian Wells.
I thought those Medvedev matches would be a turning point, but he wasn't really that close to winning them, and then he lost.
Yeah, I mean,
He lost
Doha was actually pretty tight
Doha.
in the second set. He
Yeah,
had those set points.
that's right. Yeah,
Um,
6-4, 7-6.
yeah,
That's set points.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
it is. Yeah, since Indian Wells, it's
Yeah.
been tough. I would like to see Berrettini and Sinner. I don't think those two have ever played each other.
Have they not?
That's wild. Have they never played? Actually, I don't think
Mm.
we've seen a single match between Berrettini and Sinner. I will confirm that right now. Let's see. That is wild. They've been on the
Yeah,
tour for a while. I don't think they've played each other.
not. Nope.
They haven't, right?
No, and to think
Wow.
that
Okay.
Sinner was the alternate who replaced Berrettini at the ATP Finals 2 years ago.
Yeah, I'm curious about Jerry too. I think Jerry could have a good week, but it's who does he play? Jerry plays Humbert. Oh, that's a pick'em. Jerry and Humbert to play Fritz. That's a tough draw for the
Mhm.
number 8 seed. because Jari's been in
Yeah.
great
So
form.
what do you expect from this
Hardcore is
quarter?
worse, but
It's hard to
yes,
see an upset in any of the quarters so far, except maybe Tsitsipas. But
maybe. I mean, if Eubanks is red hot for the second time in a row, maybe. But
yeah.
it's him
Anyway,
against. And then
um,
also the turnaround from Mexico, the conditions to here will be a bit of an adjustment. But also he has the confidence of having the title.
yeah. And now we have this quarter: Rublev,
I
Karatsev,
hope
and
we get to
McDowell.
see. I hope we get to see Rublev Tiafoe again because they played each other at the last two U.S. Opens and Tiafoe won them both.
Yeah. Last
Uh,
year, Tiafoe won in straights. The year
and I
before,
think that'll be a
Tiafoe
good
won in
litmus test
five.
for both of them because
Yeah.
Rublev has the higher floor, but Tiafoe has the higher ceiling right now.
Yeah.
On the hard courts in America.
True.
So let's see if Rublev can make one more step forward.
Yeah. And Rublev, Tiafoe. I would probably go with Tiafoe, but again, Tiafoe was not very long ago when he got blown out by Dimitrov in Wimbledon.
Also, watch out for Ronit just because he's playing at home and if he's healthy.
Yeah, that's true.
He's a guy who doesn't need much time to come back and
Nope.
in shape. We
Yeah.
saw that already in grass when he took out Kecmanovic.
Yeah.
And then Zverev against Griekspoor. They played each other in Rotterdam.
Yeah.
Griekspoor won that, and
Yeah.
Griekspoor is coming off of a final in DC.
Yeah.
So he might be fatigued. He might be a bit tired, but he can definitely.
Yeah, but he's still putting together a season of some sorts, and he's either the career high of 26, so comfortable enough to be seeded for US Open.
By the way,
I do think he was seeded for Wimbledon as well. He was Medvedev's third round. But again, Fokina and Wolf, which again I think is going to happen today. Nakashima and Lehechka is taking place right now. Winner plays Rude.
Yeah, Nakashima is up 5-3, serving for the first set. So
okay. Yeah, it's good news for you. But
I always love to see him do well from San Diego and
Nakashima and Rude would be interesting. And of
I think
course,
he only played once before, and that was on clay in Barcelona, and that was not a close match at all.
Right, as we could expect with Rude on clay. But I mean, even if it's Zverev and Rude in the third round, I expect Rude to win this.
Oh yeah. He's in form. Zverev won. It will be interesting to see because now he won Hamburg, but he didn't really play anyone in the top 50. Is that right? I don't think he played anyone in the top 50 in Hamburg.
I don't think so.
So it'll be interesting, and he doesn't have a top 10 win yet. So
it'll
be interesting to see him play.
And he's only has one top 15 win. That's against Tiafoe and RG. And every other win has been against players outside the top 25.
He looked really good in Hamburg, but I don't know how he look against the very best. So
by the way, what was Deminor's? What is Deminor's ranking?
Right now, I'd say like 18, 17, something like that. Let's see the exact ranking right now.
Because I know that Tsitsipas going into Los Cabos didn't have a top 15 win for the season.
Yes.
So does that still stand? Is the question. I'm just having a look at his.
No, he still doesn't because he lost. He beat Diminor, who was 18, and then he beat
Diminor 19, Chorich 16. So that's gonna have to wait.
He did get his first win over Borna.
Yeah, that's true. That's gonna have to wait a bit more, and
actually, Chorich was 16 last week. Now he's 15. So but yeah, I mean, I think we're getting close to the end here, so we should probably wrap it up soon. Let's see what else there is about Canada. Maybe some live update or something. No. Let's see. Yeah, Cerundolo was up a set. Musetti won the first set against Nishioka. So yeah, these matches are all
Let's
coming on
finish the
today.
last two sections in the draw.
Yep. So yeah,
Yeah,
Divinor and
Fritz,
Nori.
Fritz and Nori, the biggest rivalry.
Oh yes, yes. We need them to play each other again
Yeah.
because it's 6-6, and we need a
Mhm.
tiebreak.
Yeah. Well,
decide who's
the
gonna go.
two of the past three Indian World's champs.
Yep.
And yeah, if you ask me who amongst the two has had a better career so far, I would say Nori. Um, who has a
Mm,
bigger ceiling? I would say
Oh yeah,
Fritz.
because he does have the semi-final at Wimbledon. Maybe that's what
Yeah, he
separates.
does. Um,
That's true.
and just
Nori
better
has
at
what, 5
slams
titles?
in
It's
general, I
it's
would say. But
but it's this thing, and then I guess yeah, career high. Fritz got to 5 in the world though, so it's a good debate.
mhm.
And then he does have the semifinals in Turin. But I guess yeah,
Yeah,
in terms of
Deminor
slams,
and Nori,
Nori has been better in the majors.
Ugo Umber and Jerry. That could, I mean, I can see the ball absolutely getting pummeled in that match.
Yeah, I have no idea who's winning that. That is like that is a 50-50 because Umber is a bit of an enigma.
Yeah,
And when he's firing, but like the last few weeks have been consistent for him. Like Newport,
yeah,
Atlanta, he's been making semis. Here he was supposed to play Dimitrov in Washington, then he pulled out. So with injury. So if he's healthy and he has a good record against top 10 players, he's 7-7 in his career, which is very healthy. So it would
yeah,
be interesting to see him play Fritz. That's a tough first round for Fritz. He may not get out of that.
yeah.
Let's see.
And yeah,
Yeah,
Fritz still
Athens. We'll see if he
somehow
can
is
back up his
the
review.
yeah. Fritz, however, somehow is in the top 10 in the race.
Oh yeah, because he's won 2 titles and he won the 350 points in the United Cup, which helped a
Yeah,
lot. And then semifinals of
true.
Monte Carlo, quarters in Indian Wells, quarters in Miami. So he was very consistent up until, apart from Australian Open loss, he was very consistent in Monte Carlo. Then he had a bit of a
Yeah,
lull until Atlanta, but yeah, that's where I think the points come from. He's
yeah.
ninth in the race. I think if he had won against Griekspoor, he would have been top 8.
Hmm.
But he's always
Right,
around number 9 every time
right.
the last few months.
Yeah, I definitely agree,
Uh,
John.
yeah,
It's
he
I would
he
say
has it's been
since
funny.
um maybe yeah, Turin was probably an outlier, losing to Simon and Bercy. I think won Tokyo.
I think
Okay,
it's just slams. I don't, I think it's like the loss at Wimbledon was inexcusable to me against Emer. 2 sets to love in a break, like you
yeah,
can't be losing that.
yeah,
And
that's
then
true.
and then Popper was red hot and he had the home crowd and he played really well, but still like these are matches you should be winning. So
Yeah, and also the loss to Brandon Holt last year.
yes. So that's why like the last 4 slam losses have been disappointing. I think Surrendero the least because
Yeah,
he
that's
didn't
fine. I mean,
understand
at
very
least
much. Yeah.
Sterndalo has that clay pedigree,
Yeah.
which would have been interesting if Fritz won because Fritz did beat Holger in Miami.
Yes. Yeah. And we were all really excited for the match against Alcaraz, but it just showed that Alcaraz has a very complete game.
Yep. And now progressing to the final section.
Yeah, Zhang has been interesting to watch this year.
Yeah.
He's had a breakthrough year.
Hmm.
Same with Arnaldi, maybe. Yeah, Arnaldi,
Yeah,
Medvedev.
Medvedev and
This is a
Arnaldi
good section
played
for
in
Medvedev.
Dubai. I watched
I
that
don't
match.
really see if he's at his best here, Medvedev. He should come through.
Yeah, I mean,
Who is his potential quarterfinal? Is
Medvedev.
it Rude?
I think
No. Oh, is it Rude?
mm, it it is Fritz.
Oh, it's Fritz. Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. They played
and
each other in
Medvedev
the
played
quarter.
Arnaldi in Dubai this year. It's pretty comfortable.
Okay,
Yeah, um, but
but yeah. So do you think
Pospisil,
we're
I
gonna
think,
get
is
a
someone who's
Medvedev?
beaten Medvedev before. It was 2 years ago,
Yeah.
but I don't know if he has that kind of form now.
Oh, Poshpersel? Yeah, no,
Yeah,
Poshpersel has been out for a while, but he is playing at home. Maybe. maybe you can suddenly find it.
Yeah.
Mm.
Medvedev and Musetti would be really interesting.
Yeah,
Could be tough one for Medvedev.
could be.
Yeah. Maybe on a
But yeah, I
fast
think
hard court, not as much, but still.
yeah, right.
Anyway, so that's the draw prediction
Yeah,
time.
that was the draw. Do you think we're gonna get Alcaraz Medvedev in the final? I guess what are your
I
semis?
think, right. I think Alcaraz loses before the final here.
Okay, to who?
Just he probably needs those one or two tournaments to get off that high of from winning a slam or having a big result. Like last year, he needed those two tournaments going to the US Open. So I do think there are players who can beat him in his section. Um, the so obviously the number two favorite anyway is Medvedev. He has a good enough draw. So yeah, and then anyone else who I can think of. Rude, well, he doesn't have the best record against these top guys, so hard to be that optimistic about him. Fritz and Medvedev played just once on tour level. That was last year in Cincinnati. Medvedev won. I think it was down set points in the first set, but then he managed to win that in straights. And Tsitsipas would like his form at the moment. He has gotten some confidence from winning that title, and also good run at Wimbledon. All things considered, we had him losing earlier than he did. So yeah, I think Medvedev and Tsitsipas would be looking confident and fresh.
Yeah, actually, I did my predictions last night.
Mhm.
So for the racket bracket or whatever, and I think I had an Alcaraz Sinner semi,
Mhm.
and I think in the other semi I had Medvedev against. It actually wasn't even. It wasn't even Rode or Rublev. I think it was Zverev. Just
Oh,
because I thought that some players would fall in that section, and that maybe the confidence from Hamburg or something. And then I had Medvedev getting through and beating Zverev, and then I had Alcaraz beating Sinner.
okay. Right, Medvedev and Sinner. Yeah, you would heavily pick Medvedev. Um,
Yeah. No, I didn't have Sinner beating Alcaraz. I went with Alcaraz at the end.
okay, so I guess you had Alcaraz
Yeah.
winning the tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
I did.
I mean, I don't think no one's really ready to pick Medvedev against Alcaraz in any match until we see something different.
Yeah. But I think that's what Medvedev would want. He'd want to see Sinner
Yeah,
as
he
opposed
would
to
want to
Alcaraz.
see Sinner, but maybe part of him also would want maybe a win against Medvedev, against Alcaraz, or even like give him a tough contest, just so
Yeah.
it would help him because he's like the only big problem Medvedev has in the top 10.
I really want to see Tsitsipas against Sinner in the quarters.
Mm.
I hope we get to see that
I
again.
want to say
Because,
Rublev and Alcaraz at some point.
yeah, that they would have to. Rublev would have to get to the final for that,
Yeah.
which is here. But yeah, I think we will see it at some point. Maybe in Turin. Good chance. But yeah, I think that about does it for this week's ATP Weekly.
Yep.
We're past the 1 hour 20-minute mark.
Yeah.
Good to have
and-
Eric on for the first 30 minutes or so, and then we did our usual in-depth analysis.
Yeah,
of
it was
the draw
fun as
and
always,
the event.
and let's hope we get some juicy and feisty action in Canada. I personally am looking forward to Novak returning the fall tournament after. Of course, we'll talk about that next week. But yeah, until then,
Yep.
to all the viewers, thanks for tuning in, and thanks as always, Vanch, for be guiding us through the show. It's always great to get your insights and pick of your memory, if you will. And yeah, I will see you soon.
All right. Yep. And be sure to check in to WTA Weekly.
Yeah,
It's
it
coming out
should
in
be
10
coming
minutes.
up soon after.
Yep. And yeah, we'll see you next time on ATP Weekly.
Yeah. See you.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.